Lesson number 5 for Sunday, January 29th. The Debt Problems. Deuteronomy 28, 1, 2, and 12 says, "And it shall come to pass, if you shall hearken diligently to the voice of the Lord your God, to observe and to do all his commandments which I command you this day, that the Lord your God will set you on high above all nations of the earth. And all these blessings shall come on you, and overtake you, if you shall hearken to the voice of the Lord your God. The Lord shall open to you his good treasure, the heaven, to give the rain to your land in its season, and to bless all the work of your hand. And you shall lend to many nations, and you shall not borrow." What is God's ideal for his children regarding debt? How can they attain this ideal? And though this context is very different from ours, what principles can we take away from it to apply to ourselves now? Studies show that there are 3 primary reasons that people get into financial difficulty. They are listed here in the order of greatest frequency. The first is ignorance. Many people, even the educated, are financially illiterate. They were simply never exposed to the biblical or even secular principles of money management. There is hope, however. This lesson will provide a simple outline of these principles on how to apply them. The second reason for financial difficulties is greed or selfishness. In response to the advertising and personal desire, people simply live beyond their means. They aren't willing to live in, drive, or wear what they can really afford. Many of these same people also feel that they just are too poor to tithe. As a consequence, they live their lives without God's promised wisdom and blessing. See Malachi 3:10-11 and Matthew 6:33. There's hope for these people as well, but it requires a change of heart and a spirit of contentment. The third reason people find themselves in financial difficulty is personal misfortune. They may have experienced a serious illness without adequate health insurance. They may have been abandoned by a spendthrift marriage partner. A natural disaster may have wiped out their possessions, or they may have been poor and raised in abject poverty. But there is hope for these people, too. Though their path is more difficult, their troubles can be overcome. Change may come with the support of Christian friends, the counsel and or assistance of godly counselors, hard work coupled with good education, and the blessing and providence of God. Whatever the reason, even if it's a person's own fault, debt can be alleviated. However, those in debt will need to make some changes in their lives, their spending, and their financial priorities. 1 Timothy 6:6-9 says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. And having food and raiment, let us be therewith content. But they that will be rich fall into temptation and a snare, and into many foolish and hurtful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. What is Paul saying here that all of us need to heed? What do these words mean to you, and in what ways can you better follow what the Word is teaching us here? From the book, The Adventist Home, page 374, it says, "To desire to bear your own weight and not to eat the bread of dependence is right. It is a noble, generous ambition that dictates the wish to be self-supporting. Industrious habits and frugality are necessary. Many, very many, have not so educated themselves that they can keep their expenditures within the limit of their income. They do not learn to adapt themselves to circumstances, and they borrow and borrow again and again, and become overwhelmed in debt, and consequently they become discouraged and disheartened. All should learn how to keep accounts. Some neglect this work as non-essential, but this is wrong. All expenses should be accurately stated." From Review and Herald, December 24, 1903, it says, "If you have extravagant habits, cut them away from your life at once. Unless you do this, you will be bankrupt for eternity. Habits of economy, industry, and sobriety are a better portion for your children than a rich dowry. We are pilgrims and strangers in this earth. Let us not spend our means in gratifying desires that God would have us repress. Let us fitly represent our faith by restricting our wants." From the book Counsels on Stewardship, page 133, it says, "The followers of Christ are not to despise wealth. They are to look upon wealth as the Lord's entrusted talent. By a wise use of these gifts, they may be eternally benefited, but we are to bear the fact in mind that God has not given us riches to use just as we shall fancy, to indulge impulse, to bestow or withhold as we shall please. We are not to use riches in a selfish way, devoting them simply to your own judgment. This course would not be doing right toward God or toward our fellow men, and would bring at last only perplexity and trouble. Both the poor and the rich are deciding their own eternal destiny and proving whether they are fit subjects for the inheritance of the saints in light. Those who put their riches to a selfish use in this world are revealing attributes of character that show what they would do if they had greater advantages and possessed the imperishable treasures of the kingdom of God. The selfish principles exercised on the earth are not the principles which will prevail in heaven. All men stand on the equality and an equal state in heaven. Have a blessed